So tonight's opening night. What's it like to be here in Bristol?
It's quite nerve-wracking actually. I think it's the closest to home for me since we started in Cardiff over a year ago. So a lot of familiar faces are coming to see the show, a lot of family. So my mum's coming. Quite nervous really.
Is she?
Yeah, not tonight, which is coming on, okay. I won't say which night because I'll get nervous. And my nan's coming as well, and she's 87. So it really is, the closest final destination to home really. And I finish in 9 weeks' time. So for me, it's a big thing coming to Bristol.
Absolutely, and you've just touched on it there, that this is the last sort of stop, as it were, on the tour. What's it been like, the whole tour as a whole?
Well, it's not really the last stop. We have Oxford after this, and that is the final stop. Well, for me anyway, and for you. Our final stop.
Mm. But the tour itself goes on.
Yes.
Or up and down the country, left, right and centre. And of course that's the, I mean there are drawbacks to any job, aren't there? And let's get this clear, acting isn't coal mining or, soldiering. But, the fact of the matter is, when you're away on tour, you're obviously away from familiarity, and there's great comfort in familiarity. But that's just the way it is. We get 1 day off a week, and so you can always get back to your home wherever that is. But it is nice to come to a place like Bristol, which is beautiful, and as is the theatre, and it does make a lot of difference to have a lovely theatre, and it's a really good crew backstage as well. So it's a vast production, this one, and it's great to come into a well-oiled machine.
Absolutely. And how much do you actually get a feel for the places that you're going? I know you only arrived in Bristol sort of last night, today. How much of a feel have you got for the city?
We're here for 5 weeks, so we get to kind of explore the city, in the daytime. And we have new kids as well who are rehearsing during Bristol, so time will be taken up with that. But we do get time to explore the city, and we do get time to meet the people. I think the people are really important because they're the people who come to see the show, and it really makes a difference when the crowd are, with you, doesn't it? Particularly in a family show like The Sound of Music. It's wonderful when so many ages come to see the show, kids to, my nan at 87. So I think it really makes a difference when you get to know the people. I get to go to know all the coffee shops around here anyway. Been in 2 this morning. So I think you get a vibe for the city, and it feels really exciting in Bristol. And I heard the shopping's amazing.
It definitely is. You should definitely sample that. And how much of a difference do you see in the different theatres that you go into?
Oh, they can be vast. And they're all... if you subscribe to the notion that perhaps buildings in some way reflect the people who've been in them, and there may be an argument for that. And I sort of do, I think, not that I've really thought about it, but it is an absolute fact that every theatre has a sort of palpable sense to it, and they're all different. And they're different for different reasons. I mean, obviously, the room itself can have a huge impact on our show, because obviously we're mic'd, as all shows are these days. In fact, though, do you know the first shows to be mic'd was in 1930?
Really?
Yeah. I found that out the other day, or thereabouts. So we've been miking shows for years. But so obviously it's a very technical show to that sense, and the dynamic of the room can be tremendously important. And some theatres we've been in, the dynamics of the acoustic rather of the buildings are shocking.
The modern ones really.
Some of them are, yeah. And some theatres which have been designed to be both a theatre and a speaking venue or a concert venue, they seem to be, for some reason, the worst of all, because no one's really, I suppose, cared as much about the acoustic, whereas the guy who designed this theatre, Matcham, is one of the world-renowned greatest architects, particularly for theatrical architecture. So it's always a great, A, blessing, B, relief. We'll go to a Matcham theatre.
And always a good seat for the audience, I think, because he designed the Palladium, and it's very intimate, even though it's a huge theatre. A bit like the Hippodrome, you still feel like you've got a good seat because it's not too high and it's not too wide. We've just come from Liverpool, that was very wide, and it was often difficult as an actor to kind of keep the whole audience engrossed when it's so wide. And Southampton's a bit the same, it's very wide, isn't it? Very wide stage, but here we're blessed with quite a small intimate space, or it feels like it, even though it's a really lovely, quite large theatre.
I mean, that's the trick. I mean, that's the trick that he solved with proportions, and I mean, he's an architectural genius. You know, he can get a massive amount of people, but at the same time create an intimacy, and it works particularly well for a show like this one, because this one you can be forgiven for thinking, you know, it's if your knowledge of The Sound of Music is the movie, you could be forgiven for thinking that it's sort of a saccharine thing. I mean, I haven't seen the film for 40 odd years now, but this production, and I think one of the many reasons why it's such an iconic show is that it does speak to on many levels that as you were saying, we kids and older kids can really get. You know, there's an awful lot in there that's very, what's the word I'm searching for? You know, the audience will have an expectation of what they think they're coming to see, and I don't think I'm wrong in saying we, for the most part, will exceed that expectation.
Definitely, and I mean, talking about that intimacy here at the Hippodrome, it does seem that would be quite a big part of a play like The Sound of Music, which is very kind of family-based, and it seems that people sort of really warm to it, and obviously it's been around for so long. So what's going to make this production maybe different to what people are expecting and to sort of other versions of it, I suppose?
It's much funnier. The stage version was written before the film, and the film was adapted obviously for the film. So what Lloyd Webber and David Ian did when they had it at the Palladium, they decided to take some of the songs from the film so that people who loved the film would kind of come with those expectations. And so they took I Have Confidence and put it in the show, and they took The Lonely Goat Herd from the film and put it in the show, which weren't in the original stage version. But also within the show, you've got a lot more humour, I think, than the film. It's, you know, described as quite antiseptic, the film, but yeah, I don't think so. But I think, you know, there is a lot more room as an actress playing Maria with the stage version to kind of use that humour and that wit she's got. But there's also a real political undertone, which you get from your duets with Max and the Baroness, which aren't in the film. So you kind of, with the film, you kind of miss out on that. I think, you know, because there's so much story to fit in, you know, an amazing love story to fit in those few hours, but you get the same and more, and a live version. And I think coming up to Christmas, it's a great family show.
Absolutely. And what would you say your favourite scenes are in it then?
Kissing Michael Praed.
Well, you know,
Say kissing Connie Fisher.
Well, I thought that was axiomatic. The thing is, you know, the great universal truths which speak to everyone, love perhaps being the biggest. You know, when you have a character, the one that I'm playing, Captain Von Trapp, who is emotionally bankrupt, divorced emotionally from his kids by virtue of the fact that he can't bear to see them because they remind him of his dead wife. There's a pretty big barrier that he's put around himself, an impenetrable one, actually. And so when that barrier goes and he reconnects for the first time with his children, that's I think one of my favourite bits, because it's a moment in the play that, regardless of your age or intelligence, it just speaks volumes.
Absolutely. I mean, how much are you, as an actor and an actress, how much are you able to sort of tap into all of those emotions and sort of getting to that character? How much do they sort of echo you, I suppose, and elements of your character?
I think there's a lot of Maria in me. I'm, you know, always singing. You think you can vouch for that? Always singing. But there's a lot of joy, and I think, like you say, you know, it's not coal mining, it's not being a soldier, but it is bringing a lot of joy. And there's great joy in playing Maria. You know, she's a very lovable character, and playing a character in such a joyous show is an amazing job. I think it, you know, to see people so moved by a fairy tale essentially, but there's a lot of truth to it, and there's a lot of I don't know, hard-hitting reality to it, really. You know, people who can remember the war. You know, when my nan comes, she's quite moved by it. So I think, you know, there are people who remember those times, and And the way Jeremy Sams has directed some of the scenes, particularly the concert scene, is very moving, because you've got the banners coming down. It's quite threatening, I think. You feel part of the concert.
You know, it's yes, indeed. We were talking about iconic shows. I mean, you can't. I mean, I defy you to find a more iconic emblem than the swastika. And when that thing, there are a couple of, you know, those armbands go on, you know, that it's quite, you know, when you see the German officers in their uniforms,
it's quite haunting.
It is, because, you know, if the show is about anything, it is about many things, but principally about love. But of course, lurking in the background of all of that is the hideous spectre of Nazism. And to me, one of the biggest, most intriguing questions in the play, it's a tiny one, but for me it's the most intriguing, is that, again, because everything revolves around Praed, you know, my character is faced with a decision about, because he fought along with the Germans in the First World War as a submariner, although he was Austrian. The big question is, as an individual, under the same circumstances, what would you do? You know, would you go with the Germans and say, you know, your family will be protected, or would you go, actually, no, I'm going to give up pretty much everything? And it's a really interesting one. And you know, when faced with intolerable situations, you know, who's to say what we would do there? I've just not articulated that very clearly, but I think perhaps you might know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. So tonight's opening night. What's it been like to work together?
Oh, nightmare. He is such a diva. I mean, God. He demands blue Smarties, sofas, massages all the time. Never work with him again.
It's been great working with Connie. You know, and we're in this era, aren't we, of, for want of a better word, reality TV shows. You know, we've got How to Solve a Problem.
How to solve a problem. How to
and,
win it.
And then we get the other ones. And the one that Connie won, you know, is a celebration of talent. The other ones aren't particularly. And I actually, not that I want to bang a gong about this, but I actually find branches of the other ones immoral, reprehensible almost, because, you know, you'll if you say to anyone in the street, you know, would you like to be a star? Because this is the culture in which we live. Everyone's going to go, well, yeah, I'd like a shot at that. And if you're singing at home, for instance, and your mother and brother, wife, lover says, darling, you've got a great voice, when in actuality you sing like a dog, and you go to one of these auditions and you get put through to the next round, you don't realise you're deluded, but you're being validated because someone says, yeah, you get through to the next round. But you're only being put through to the next round to actually just be eviscerated. And I think that's dreadful. And what Connie did is completely different. It's just a whole bunch of girls, you know, show us what you can do.
She was deluded and sounded like a dog. And she won.
With one of the most beautiful voices around. And that's, I can't think of anything more difficult, because the audition process as an actor is, I think most actors would agree, is by far and away the most difficult thing about the job, because it's not acting per se, it's sort of performing, but it's, I don't know, it's
playing. That's what we do, isn't it? We're players.
Yeah, but in an audition thing, it's tough.
It's quite nerve-wracking.
And particularly when something like you know, you go on a show like that, and you're either, you're probably not going to get very far, but, you know, if you win the damn thing, that is literally a life-changing event, full stop. And so the stakes are enormously high. And so, because I've been asked, you know, what are your opinions on these shows? And I mean, I think that the business can accommodate anything. And so...
It's only brought a new audience, I think.
Well, you know, let's get this clear. And it's an absolute fact. I mean, I think, you know, had the show not been so tremendously successful, you know, we wouldn't be doing this tour without you here.
Well, I love the tour.
I do too.
And I love everyone who voted for me, but I can't pay your phone bills, all right? So stop writing in. No, it was a wonderful opportunity winning that show. And you're right, completely changed my life, and I never thought it would. But we do meet some amazing people at Stage Door who always say, I voted for you. And okay, thank you. And, you know, my mum's phone bill was huge, so I can't imagine what theirs were. And it's created an amazing atmosphere within the show because, you know, those people who voted for me then bring their kids who've grown up with it, and that inspires them to go on stage. And I love that about the show. You have so many kids in the show that you can inspire kids to want to be in a musical. And for me, that's all I ever wanted to do, was, you know, to be on stage. And I didn't go to a musical until I was about, well, a real live musical until I was about 15. So to go see a show and be taken to a show because we saw a TV show and, you know, somebody off the telly's on it is great to be able to inspire those children to go on and hopefully play Maria one day.
Arthur Jones from Filton would like to know whether you are actually weary of becoming typecast forever as Maria.
Well, I did meet Julie Andrews, and she did say, you know, don't play all my roles, so I haven't. I was offered things like Mary Poppins, and same kind of role, you know, different name, I suppose. But because of the timing of the musical, perhaps because of, you know, where we were at the time and the job that I was in, I couldn't take those jobs at the time. I would have loved to have played those parts, and still would love to play those parts, you know, Eliza Doolittle, and I don't think you can get bored of playing those parts. So really, I'm not worried about being typecast, because I think if you're right for something, go with it. Don't fight against type.